And we're back with more News Talk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this Thursday edition of the Mark Petrunner Show. Always a pleasure having Benjamin Dichter on the show. He is the author of a terrific new book, Honking for Freedom. This is the definitive look at what happened with the convoy. This is the extended play version. This is the historical document. This is what's going to go down in history as what really happened. It's I guess kind of a first draft or maybe a second draft if you include the media reports, which were largely false. But this, you're getting an inside scoop here. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
It's good to see you again, Mark.
Good to see you as well. All right, so Amazon has this thing on their platform and it's doing terrific, correct?
Yeah, it hit number one bestseller in a number of categories within the first 24 hours or 18 hours, whatever it was, and has been bouncing around on its number one overall list on Amazon Books. So yeah, it's been surprisingly successful, or maybe not all that surprisingly successful, given the amount of interest there was globally around the Freedom Convoy.
Yeah, I've yet to get to dig into the book. I'm very much looking forward to reading the internal accounts of what happened. It's just
leave a review. Don't forget to leave a review. Very important. And
well,
your review can be just simply honk honk. That's fine.
Okay, so what are you hearing back from people other than Canadians? I mean, I understand that you're going to be doing some speaking engagements in places like Boston.
Well, the overall reception to the book has been amazing, actually. It's many of the messages that I received during the convoy, a lot of that stuff has been echoed, the positive and emotional sentiments, and people, tears of joy sort of thing that we saw during the convoy, that finally they see hope on the horizon. And a lot of those people seem to be reliving that experience, and they're looking at the landscape of the world right now, and that people like Prime Minister Blackface Trudeau are jokes on the world stage, as are, by the way, Doug Ford as well, who's increasingly becoming a punchline because his involvement of invoking the Emergency Measures Act 2 days before Justin Trudeau. So it's been really great. People have been very, very supportive and loving, and it's wonderful. Those comments have been coming all over the world, and so much so that I'm going to be speaking tonight at an event in Boston, and I've been getting requests from all over the U.S., Las Vegas, Houston, L.A., that they want me to come down and talk about the importance of freedom, what happened with Bitcoin, how the money was grabbed by our government and the current state of that, and just overall how to advocate and how to lead people in pushing back in a very loving and peaceful way against the government, in that we're not a threat, despite what the government in Canada continues to try to sell people and fails miserably, because we all have functioning eyes. And there is a website called what's it called? Convoylive.com is what I think it is, where the person who developed it has all the live stream feeds and maps them out with their dates of what was going on in each day. So everybody can look to see how peaceful it was themselves. And I'm proud to say that John Goddard, who helped me put this book together, contributed a lot of information and data to the person who is running that website. So the narrative from the establishment, and all sides of the establishment, by the way, are collapsing, and everybody is realizing once again it was nothing but absolute peace until the police and the government brought violence.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing some of Brenda Lucky's testimony. She, of course, is commissioner of the RCMP, and she talked about some of the internal dialogue that was going on, repeating over and over, oh, we have to stop this thing. When is it going to end? How are we going to stop it? How are we going to stop it? When is it going to end? Guess what? Canadians are allowed to protest. It'll end when Canadians are finished protesting. I mean, don't these people understand that we have the right to do this? And the idea that somehow everything was about ending a legal protest troubles me, because it suggests to me that they don't appreciate nor do they understand why Canadians protest and the fact that we have the right to do so in the first place. What do you think?
I love the fact that she was sitting there with a mask trying to hide her face. I mean, what a lunatic, really. Like, that is our leadership in policing. This is what happens when law enforcement gets polluted with nothing but political hacks and bureaucrats. And she's put on the stage. She doesn't know what to say. She has no clue. She has no competency. She has no skills. She's in way over her head, just like Prime Minister Blackface. And she looked, quite frankly, quite pathetic. So I don't really care what she said, honestly. She's just going to regurgitate what she's told to say, and she's going to use weasel words around to allow her to dodge the questions, which is exactly what she did. You know, it's always, oh, well, the procedure was this. It's like, just answer the question. Just answer the question. But you won't. You can't, because you're completely incompetent and you got caught.
Yeah, absolutely. And the upshot of that is who knows what the political ramifications will. Do you think that ultimately Trudeau will testify? I mean, to my knowledge, he is still not committing to do so. Is that right?
From what I understand, he is, and it's shocking to see that Prime Minister Blackface has more courage than Doug Ford. That I never would have guessed, 3-4 years ago, that he would volunteer to testify, but Dougie is going to hide behind bureaucracy and a legal challenge that was just completely unethical for him. People want answers. What happened to Mr. Open for Business? I'm Mr. Transparent, man of the people, whatever. But like a weasel, he goes to hide behind lawyers and the justice system, which was, I don't know, that decision was absolutely horrible. Whether or not Trudeau testifies, I think is irrelevant. What's going to happen? He's going to get out there, call us names, racist, bigot, whatever. The CBC is just going to clip out those 10 to 20 seconds of his speech, and then you'll see the headlines: Prime Minister confirms that extremist elements participated in Freedom Convoy. And it's the complete opposite of reality. And I think even the CBC readership is starting to understand that, and that's why nobody watches them, which is exactly why I banned them from our press conferences during the Freedom Convoy.
Yeah, it was interesting that the Trudeau told Ford, you don't need any more legal tools to deal with the Ambassador Bridge issue. To me, the fact that the PMO released that information as readily as they did suggests that they're going to throw Doug under the bus. The picture that they're trying to portray here is that the Premier of Ontario, where these protests were taking place, the largest ones anyway, was pressing the Prime Minister into imposing the Emergencies Act, aka martial law. And Trudeau said, well, you don't need it. But it was like this kind of back and forth, and almost like, well, Trudeau says, yeah, all right, fine, if you really want me to do it. No, don't get me wrong. There's no truth to it. I don't believe it. But I think that they're almost trying to put out there that Ford was pressing us to do it, and we kind of relented. To me, this is about throwing Doug under the bus.
Well, I think it's all about them all throwing each other under the bus. And that became very clear in the first week and a half of the commission, that everybody was doing it, which is exactly what I predicted, by the way. We had spoken about this. They're going to do it. Was him. That's all I knew. It was him. That's their policy, which is exactly what they were doing on the ground when we arrived in Ottawa. And I had a feeling that that was the case. That's why I told our then lawyers, saying, don't do anything. Just sit down, do legal stuff, get our money released, and ensure, well, at that point, it was ensure that money gets to us. Because everybody in Ottawa and in the bureaucracy is going to do this, right? It's everybody else's problem. And that has continued now to today, and everybody is looking for a scapegoat. There were people on our side that were looking for a scapegoat, and they tried to use me. Well, that failed miserably. And then there's people on the government side who are looking for a scapegoat there, and it's just not going to happen. So I don't know, man. Get your popcorn. I think this is the best comedy show in Canadian history.
I agree. But the internal divisions in the convoy, I mean, that's another story altogether. And you've been in the center of it, the bickering, the divisions. And unfortunately, I think it's maybe hurt the messaging side of it. Overall, I think largely the convoy won.
Well,
Because
no. There was no division. That's what I tried to explain in the testimony. Like
okay,
myself and the 7 board members, there was always friction in making decisions because we had the world on us, right? Like we had everybody in the world watching us, the government watching us. We had so many different entities trying to take over, and they had different things that they wanted to talk about. So I mean, we resolved all our differences throughout. It was great. It was the external political factors that came on board that started causing the division as much as they could. And they sowed so much distrust amongst truckers that were on the ground and some people within the organization. But us, original 7, we were fine. We were great. If everybody would have left us alone, we could have been set up and ready to meet with the government and actually get something done. But people connected to Dean French, the best friend of the guy who invoked the passports in Ontario, came and decided, I'm going to speak on behalf of the truckers, when he said publicly he doesn't support the truckers. So I don't know how anybody in Ottawa thought that those were legitimate representatives of the convoy. It would have taken 2 seconds for a simple Google search, but they're too lazy to do that because that's how the bureaucracy and the political class is. They're just lazy.
yeah, and you have ties to the PC Party of Ontario, Doug Ford's party, and there are some internal divisions there, aren't there, over what he has done with regards to his draconian bills that actually restrict freedoms that, from my view, actually impinge on charter rights around protest. And he's trying to tie the hands of future convoys and all the rest of it. But this is not going over well amongst some in the PC party. Is that right?
From what I understand, the majority of the PC party. I know, listen, I still have many people within both the PC party and the federal party who love me because I don't back down. I don't care. I'm going to keep pushing forward, and I'm going to call out their nonsense. And I understand the difficulties of people who are within the structure, who work there, like they have certain constraints, and I get that. But in terms of trust for Doug Ford, I mean, you know how bad it was. They just had a convention, Mark. They didn't have enough delegates to have a convention, so they insisted it was no longer optional. All staffers had to come to convention, and they immediately elected them to the different riding associations just so they could vote. So the delegates were the staffers. Like, that's how pathetic it's become.
Yeah, that is pretty sad. Do you anticipate, and I know we've kind of talked about this in the past, but the convoy was such a success. Do you anticipate another one day?
I don't know. I don't know if it's necessary right now. There's lots of people who have hunger for that. That's why I put this book together, not only for people to understand the truth of what went on behind the scenes, all documented. As you know, John Goddard, who did the book with me, was an investigative journalist for 30 years. Took us 2 months just to put together the timeline and verify everything, which was helpful actually when we were submitting evidence in our evidence for our testimony for the commission. So yeah, I think what I was hoping to do is people would be able to relive the experience and also take this book, get a broader context and in some cases a more direct and specific context of what was going on behind the scenes, but also you get another copy and accidentally leave it at their liberal sister, brother, parents, cousin's house by accident. Just leave it on the coffee table, because I think once they pick it up and start to read it, they're going to realize the media was lying to them the entire time. It was a movement based on love and peace and coming together. And that's something that nobody can resist. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. So I think this will do a lot right now in terms of having another convoy. I mean, in Ontario, we have Bill 100. So we're, I don't know, in a permanent state of emergency now. So we have the Emergencies Act permanently around Doug Ford. Like, what a lunatic, So I don't know that a convoy itself is really necessary at this point. But getting the word out to people who were lied to by the legacy media, that is important. So honkingforfreedom.com to get a copy.
All right, honkingforfreedom.com. Benjamin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, brother.
All right, Benjamin Dichter. Let's take a break. Back with more on Newstalk Saga 960 and the Mark Petronas Show after this.